It is 6:33, and I'm going to call the organizational meeting of the Ulster County Legislature to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, remain standing for a moment of silent meditation, and I'm going to ask that Legislator Litz lead the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated, everyone. Our first item is roll call. Bartels.
Here.
Cahill.
Here.
Corcoran.
Here.
Criswell.
Here.
Erner.
Here.
Fabiano.
Here.
Gaveris. Green.
Here.
Hansett.
Here.
Hepner.
Here.
Hewitt.
Here.
Levine.
Here.
Litz.
Here.
Lopez.
Here.
Maloney.
Present.
Nolan.
Here.
Petit.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Ronk.
Present.
Ferry.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
You should tell. And Walter.
Here.
23 present and 0 absent. Before we really get started with our business here, I would like to welcome a couple special guests, a few special guests who we have joining us tonight, and I'm so thrilled that they're here. The first is County Executive Pat Ryan. We also have our County Comptroller, March Gallagher.
Good evening.
And we have the Ulster County Sheriff, Juan Figueroa.
Happy New
Thank you
Year.
all. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Our swearing in of the 2022-2023 legislative body is going to be conducted by the Honorable Brian Rounds, Ulster County Family Court Judge. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Judge Rounds. Except for you were muted.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Most all of you are familiar faces. I feel like I've been in a cage for 2 years and I get to see all of you again. Thank you so much for having me tonight. It's such an honor to be here. For the official public record, I'm not the family court judge. I am the Ulster County Court Judge.
I
So
knew
all of
that for
you,
the
please.
record, so I apologize.
Please, all of the legislators, if you would, please raise your right hands and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Herbert W. Wilson,
Cahill.
Jonathan Hepner.
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
That I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the charter of the County of Ulster,
and the Charter of the County of Ulster,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of legislator
of the office of legislator
for the County of Ulster,
for the County of Ulster,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
And I do further solemnly swear or affirm
I do further solemnly swear
that I have not directly or indirectly
that I have not directly or indirectly
paid, offered, or promised to pay
paid, offered, or promised to pay,
contributed or offered or promised
contributed or offered or promised
to contribute any money or other valuable thing
to contribute any money or valuable thing
as consideration or reward
as consideration
or reward
for the giving or withholding a vote
for the giving or
withholding of a vote
at the election at which I was elected to said office
at the election
at which I was elected
to
to said office
and have not made any promises
and had
and
not
have
made
not made any promises
to influence the giving
to influence the giving
giving
or withholding of any such vote.
Or with
or withholding of any such vote.
Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Rounds.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very,
you.
very much. So our next order of business is to nominate a temporary chair of the Ulster County Legislature. Are there any nominations for temporary chair? Legislator Ushitel. I'm having trouble hearing your audio. Is everybody having that problem? Or is that just me? Everybody's having that problem.
I nominate Majority Leader Jonathan Hepner.
Well, that is something interesting there. Is there a second?
I'll second that nomination.
Thank you, Legislator Criswell.
This is even better. Even better, a bipartisan nomination. Now that I've got my audio sorted out.
Okay, so that's a nomination and a second for Legislator Hepner. Are there any other nominations? For the purposes of those who aren't familiar with this, there's some procedural things we need to do here. I need to ask a couple more times. Are there any other nominations? One more time, are there any other nominations for temporary chair of the Ulster County Legislature? Hearing none, I
Move
will.
that nominations be closed.
Second.
Legislator Nolan close nomination, seconded by Legislator Ronk. All in favor of Legislator Hepner as temporary chair?
Aye.
Any opposition? With no opposition, Legislator Hepner, the meeting is yours.
Thank you, Clerk Fabella, and Happy New Year to all, especially our esteemed guests. Thank you for joining us. And welcome to our new members. And as always, it's great to see our returning members. With that, let's get down to business. At this time, I will ask for nominations for permanent chair of the Ulster County Legislature. Legislator Cahill.
Thank you, Chairperson Hepner. I come before this body to nominate Legislator Tracy Bartels to serve as chairperson of the Ulster County Legislature. I have known Tracy for more than 15 years. I first met Legislator Bartels when we served together during the transition from a legislative controlled government to an executive form of government in 2006. In that time, very few people have demonstrated more commitment to serving the people of Ulster County and to holding those of us privileged enough to serve the citizens accountable in our service. After just a few interactions with Legislator Bartels, it became clear she is an open-minded, fair, and willing to listen to all sides of a discussion, no matter what your political party affiliation is. Those are traits the leader of the county legislature must possess. Legislator Bartels has displayed them every day of her tenure as a legislator dating back to 2004. Whether it was leaving no stone unturned, investigating delays and cost overruns of the Ulster County Law Enforcement Center, serving on the bipartisan committee of the UND Rail Trails, working to implement a ban on single-use plastic bags, shining a light on the details of the recent transactions involving the former IBM complex, serving as vice chair for the past 2 years, or the latest effort to create a county-wide land bank. One thing is for certain, no one will ever outwork or work harder than Legislator Tracy Bartels. Having stepped in to lead a legislature that was in turmoil during the middle of a term, Legislator Bartels was able to stabilize the legislature and showed what it she has what it takes to lead, the right person at the right time. For those reasons and many others, I am honored to place the name of Legislator Tracy Bartels in nomination for chairperson of the Ulster County Legislature.
Thank you, Legislator Cahill. Is there a second? Legislator Petit.
Thank you,
Legislator
Chair
Petit.
Hepner. I've worked with Tracy Can you hear me? I've worked with Tracy Bartels as both a fellow legislator and a colleague for nearly 2 decades. And there are many issues that we work together and agree on, and there's some we absolutely do not. But a debate and compromise is the only way possible to achieve some of the best solutions for our public. And now more than ever, we need to come up with those solutions and take immediate action. So with that, I am holding Legislator Bartels to that task, and I'm seconding the nomination for her for legislative chair.
Thank you, Legislator Petit. With that, I will ask, are there any other nominations? For a second time, are there any other nominations? And for the third and final time, are there any other nominations? Hearing
I
none,
move that
can I have a
nominations be
motion
closed.
and a second?
I'll second.
I'll second it.
With that, the nominations have been closed by Leader Ronk and Legislator Cahill. Clerk Fabella, please call the roll.
So I'll call the roll, and with only one nomination, the vote is on Legislator Bartels to be chair. It's a yes or no vote. Bartels.
Yes.
Cahill.
Yes.
Corcoran.
Yes.
Criswell.
Yes.
Erner.
Yes.
Fabiano.
Yes.
Goveris.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Hansett.
Yes.
Hepner.
Yes.
Hewitt.
Yes.
Levine.
Yes.
Litz.
Yes.
Lopez.
Yes.
Maloney.
Yes.
Nolan.
Yes.
Petite.
Yes.
Roberts. Ronk.
Before I cast my vote, I listened intently to Legislator Cahill's nomination speech, and I sincerely hope and hold out sincere hope, I should say, that Legislator Bartels lives up to the bipartisanship that he talked about. With that hope being held, I will be a yes.
Sperry.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Uchitel.
Yes.
And Walter.
Yes.
By unanimous vote of 23-0, the new chair of the Ulster County Legislature is Chair Bartels.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. It's an honor and it's a privilege to return to this seat. And I am so humbled by the unanimous support, truly. To legislators Cahill and Petit, thank you for your nomination and your second. As you stated, I've known each of you for longer than the 14 years that I've served as a legislator, and I'm humbled by your support and moved by your words. I'd like to take a moment to thank the Honorable Judge Rounds for swearing us in tonight. We appreciate your service to the people of Ulster County and are grateful and honored that you took the time to preside over our ceremonial swearing in. On behalf of all of us, thank you. Thank you to our fellow elected leaders, Executive Pat Ryan, Sheriff Juan Figueroa, and Comptroller March Gallagher for attending tonight's organizational meeting. I speak for the entire legislative body when I say that we look forward to working with each of you and the other countywide elected officials in the coming term. To my colleagues in the legislature, both new and returning, thank you for the confidence that you've placed in me. As we are all keenly aware, these are unprecedented times. With the continued and changing challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, we're called to work together to respond to urgent needs of our constituency. As a county and a nation, we face critical crises in housing, mental health, and climate. Many of our small businesses struggle, while Amazon records record profits. Local restaurants shutter due to the compounded pressure of hiring shortages, COVID outbreaks, and decreased traffic. Essential workers are exhausted, from healthcare professionals to emergency responders, such as our esteemed colleague, legislator Minority Leader Ronk, to teachers, to grocery store clerks. And so, despite our physical separation, we are called upon to unite, to place the needs of the people first, and to serve. As your chair, I do commit to working together to deliver on our shared goals and a vision for an ever stronger Ulster County. As I've stated before, I believe the chair is a seat among equals. Together, we will deliver transformative change and relief. Thank you all. I look forward to the good work ahead. And now, onto tonight's agenda. The following designations are on file. Congratulations to Majority Leader Jonathan Hepner, District Number 23, and Minority Leader Kenneth Ronk, District Number 13. As stated, I look forward to working with you both in the coming year. We also have on file designations for official newspapers, and I would like to recognize our esteemed January birthdays. Legislator Gina Hansett, January 12th, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Legislator Dean Fabiano, January 24th, happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
And Legislator Laura Petit, January 28th, happy birthday, Legislator Petit. As always, we maintain a list of regular communications on file, especially for the new legislators. Please feel free to contact the clerk if you'd like copies of any of the communications that are listed. They're listed in our agenda, and you can reach out and you'll be provided any detail that you ask for. Moving on to public comment. Clerk Fabella, are there any speakers signed up for public comment?
There are no speakers signed up.
Okay. Given that there are none sign up, let's like to just ask if there's anyone on the call-in studio that would like to speak, that is not signed up to speak.
Okay, we've double checked that and there's no one there.
Okay. Hearing none, at this point, I'll appoint Majority Leader Hepner to run our committee of the whole.
Thank you and congratulations, Chair Bartels. With that, I will move forward. This is a procedural exercise that is necessary to move all the items for us to vote for and possibly amend on the floor. So with that, I'll ask Leader Ronk for a motion to block resolutions 1 through 7.
I'll make that motion.
And can I have a second?
I'll
I'll second it.
Second by Legislator Litz. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Be real careful. I'm alone. It's a real mess.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second? Legislator
Second.
Litz? We're adjourned.
Thank you. So on the resolutions, Majority Leader Hepner, are we able to block any of the resolutions?
Yes, I believe with the consent of Leader Ronk, we can block resolutions 1, 2, and 4 through 7.
No objection unless any of my members have an objection.
Seeing no objections, Maybe I'll just call out all in favor of the block.
Aye.
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 Okay, opposed? Hearing no objections on the block. Majority Leader Hefner,
We are a short yes.
On the block, we're a short yes.
great.
The resolutions are adopted 23-0.
Okay.
The one item remaining is resolution number 3, creating standing committees for the year 2022.
Legislator Ronk,
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to amend the resolution to move housing to the back to the Economic Development Committee. With all due respect to those who are in favor of moving it to health, most, if not all, of the non-DSS county functions in housing in the county are housed in the Department of Planning, which is still under Economic Development. I feel like it belongs better in Economic Development. In addition to that, the county executive is the only elected official not mentioned in any committee. I'd like to amend, as part of this amendment, move the county executive by letter into laws and rules.
is there a second to the proposed amendment? Legislator Maloney, are you raising your hand for a second?
Yeah, I'll make a comment. I agree. I'd rather see housing in its own standing committee. I do not believe it belongs being moved to where it is. I've heard temporary housing. Those are two very, very different issues. Temporary housing is people that are literally homeless, people running from an abusive spouse into a shelter. That is a very different issue than not having enough affordable rental properties for college students or a young family, both parents working, not being able to find a house. It's just, they're two very different problems. To combine them doesn't make a lot of sense. It already, that committee already has the largest part of our budget, which is DSS. I just think it's a very different approach. I'm not crazy about it being in economic development anymore. To be honest with you, I'm not crazy about our approach to economic development, which is so abatement driven and so much involvement from public beneficiary corporations where we don't get a lot of oversight. But it is better in economic development than I think moving it over to health. I think we should discuss this. A third of the legislature is new, another third's probably got about a term under their belt. I would have much rather see this many changes, wait a month or two and have us all, real robust debate on a lot of these and then make those changes. I think this was kind of rushed and pushed through. We're not even meeting in person. So I was a little disappointed at how aggressive we were with changing these standing committees without allowing the legislature to even serve. So I will be seconding. It doesn't also make a lot of sense that we don't assign the exec to a committee the same way we do the other countywide elected officials. I think there's plenty of arguments you can make to add the exec. I would prefer laws and rules and government services, but those are some of my issues with doing it at this point. But I will second that, and I agree with the amendment.
On the amendment. Legislator Ushatel.
Yeah, I just want to speak to the reason why I think many of us feel so strongly about including housing in particular, and I also want to speak to some of the other changes as well. But including housing in public health, I'll just point out that the mention of temporary housing. The Public Health Committee already deals with temporary housing. DSS already deals with temporary housing. The fact that we separate these in the prior format of the committees, I think speaks and is very representative of the problem that we have in our community, where there is a major disconnect between an availability. I mean, the comptroller provided a report last year about the vast amount of money that we spend on temporary housing, and all of that oversight happens within the health committee. our community, our constituents are struggling to make the jump from temporary housing into permanent housing. And I think our committee structure reflects that we have not been able to connect those dots. We need to do something different around housing. Right now, our solution to housing is to send DSS to talk to them. And that is not a solution. We need to connect these together, these topics together, and we should have the same legislative committee members overseeing these two issues to get a full understanding of the scope so that we can really ramp up our permanent housing. It is a public health issue. And I think for us to continue the same breakdown of these topics and expect a different result when I think just about everyone recognizes that we are in a housing crisis in our community, it would be the definition of insanity to keep perpetuating that and to not make a change. So I know these while we've only recently been sworn in, we're still very close to the starting line, but these topics and these changes are not completely fresh. They're not half-baked in any way. These have been discussed, for a great deal of time. And while we are all newly sworn in, I think that these are very well fleshed out ideas, and I'm very excited. I'm also very excited about seeing the arts and agriculture and economic development, because they're such important contributors to our economy. Seeing aging going into public health, I think, is incredibly important, particularly because so many people that are reliant on DSS, that are not in stable housing, whether it's because their assessments are going up, or because they're, the owners of their buildings are selling. These are folks that are senior citizens, and connecting them with the Office of the Aging, I think, makes perfect sense. So I think the subject matter areas come together very, very, very nicely here. And I'm incredibly excited about the structure of the committees as described without any amendments tonight.
Legislator Walter.
Thank you. I will agree with Legislator Ushatel. When I think about why is housing important, housing is absolutely tied into economic development, sure, because if you have businesses and there's nowhere for people to live, that's a problem. However, that's not quite the most important reason why housing is important. The most important reason is because housing is and housing insecurity is one of the #1 social determinants of health. So to me, it makes absolute sense that it is with health. Individuals who are homeless have higher rates of chronic health and mental health conditions. They have difficulty with compliance with medication. If you don't have a refrigerator, you have nowhere to put your insulin if you're a diabetic. People who are in homes that are less stable have issues with air quality, lead, access to heat, which increases risk of high blood pressure and heart problems and impact on mental health. So to me, housing, it can fall under economic development, but where it's most important, where the places that we have to really, why we need to care so much about housing is because of its impact on health. And it doesn't take away from its relevance to some of the other committees, but it's #1 priority of why we need to have good, healthy housing for all of our constituents makes this the perfect place for it to be. So I support that. I'll also say in regards to the executive, that just, and this is not accusational, but just seeing this now, I feel like I would need more time to think about this and understand that kind of addition. And so I'm uncomfortable right now making a call on how I feel about adding the executive to laws and rules. And I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'd recorded Legislator Ronk's hand and then Legislator Maloney.
Legislator Maloney can go first.
Okay, Legislator Maloney.
Thank you. I just heard homelessness again, and it's very different. Temporary housing, which we're all aware is in the Health Committee, is very different than housing in general, and many of the things we're going to be dealing with, which is why I would have preferred to see, along with some other legislators that haven't had a lot of time to debate, it in its own standing committee. Marker Tech I believe the biggest business in Saugerties is actually losing employees because of housing. These are people making $20 to $25 an hour that can't buy a house or find an affordable rental. That is very different than the large homelessness problem we have. And it's a different, complex approach with different solutions. One of the biggest things that we're going to be talking about is Airbnb regulation. The municipalities have to deal with it. We have to deal with it in our own way. That's housing. That's one of the biggest issues for housing. And I don't see that going through the health committee. Once again, we haven't had a lot of time to debate this. A third of the legislature is serving their first couple of hours. Well, kind of, because the swearing in was a couple of days ago, but this is another reason. I just heard that a couple of people aren't comfortable with voting on the exec being added. We were just sworn in. So that's my point. We haven't had time to discuss any of these things. I've talked to several former majority leaders, current majority leaders, several former chairs of the legislature. No one has seen this many wholesale changes in a standing committee at one time. And we haven't even had a chance to discuss it. And after we got it a couple of days ago, and there were many people putting forth different points of view, where did we end up? One thing changed. 100% of what was put in is basically going to be exactly as is. So all the discussions we had on the phone, not in person, not real debate, not real conversation, that all accounted for changing the word special, standing to special on the ARPA. That's what got changed. That's how much our voices were respected in this process, because we really haven't debated or gone through any of this. I'm uncomfortable with voting on all this at this point because it was too much, too early, without any real debate or discussion or compromise. That's where I'm at. And I truly believe that it would be better off, housing would be better off in economic development for now. And eventually, I think if we had a couple of months to talk about it, we'd end up with some different things, and housing might end up with its own standing committee. But for now, I agree. I don't know if a question to Legislator Ronk, are we voting on this? Should we split these up to have two separate votes on moving the exec to laws and rules and moving? And I don't know why we would want 4 countywide elected officials spoken for in our standing committees and not the 5th. I don't even know. I mean, of all the things not to debate, I mean, that would be a simple one, but to me, but I don't know what you think of that, Ken.
Through the chair, are you asking Legislator
And if
Ronk
he'd
an
be willing,
amendment
so
to
we're
the
not
amendment?
voting on this. They're two very different things. Can we split them, Ken?
Yeah, no objection. I'll withdraw the portion about the executive for now. And
Legislator Ronk, you froze. I don't know if everyone else saw you freeze, but for me, you froze. Okay, you froze, but I understand that you're willing to withdraw the portion of relating to the exec. So the amendment before us would be strictly related to housing. And Legislator Maloney, I'm assuming you're willing to withdraw your second on that portion. So now we're currently discussing just housing. So Legislator Ronk, your hand was up next, but we're now speaking on just the amendment related to housing.
affirmative. So with all due respect to what legislators Uchatel and Walter had said, I'm not saying that there isn't a public health aspect to housing. What I'm saying is that our committees are about what we can functionally do as a county. And for all intents and purposes, on the overarching issue of housing, the county portion of the government influence and effort related to housing is in the Department of Planning. That's where the planning board is. That's where all of our county functions that have to do with housing, other than emergency housing, which is already in health, reside. And what we're doing here is we're telling the public that the health committee is going to take care of housing, and we're not moving the Department of Planning to the health committee, which makes very, very, very little sense. I understand it's a good it's a good soundbite. It's good politically to say out loud. Housing is a public health issue, and that's why we're putting the housing underneath the public health committee. But the mechanisms with which to deliver on housing are still in economic development under the Department of Planning. So I believe that, sort of to Legislator Joe Maloney's point about, rushing into things and changing things at the start of the year rather than doing it in a reasoned way, and quite frankly, to Legislator Walter's point about not having a lot of time to think these things through. Legislator Walter's concerned about, another amendment, but she talked about it, so I feel like I have to respond to it now, Chairwoman Bartels. She's concerned about adding the words county executive to laws and rules, but, oh, sorry, hold on. Stand by. There we go. Concerned about adding that, the words county executive to laws and rules, but here we are adding housing without the mechanisms to deal with housing to the Public Health Committee. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Legislator Nolan.
Thank you, Chair Bartels. I think that these suggestions as a whole are really fabulous. They really show a lot of potential to make the work of the committees go much better. And I think the idea of having housing within public health is a strong one. Is it going to work? It certainly, the executive staff is available to all the committees. So I have every reason to suspect that it will work and it will work well. If it doesn't, then I think we, take that information and we have a chance to reevaluate. But I think the package as a whole is so strong that it seems worth investing in it and seeing how it works. And I have the hope that by having some of these areas of focus be in committees where there is a link to other work that committee is already doing, that it will be helpful. So I appreciate them, and I think that they're going to be really exciting new structures to work within.
Legislator Hewitt.
Thank you, Chairwoman Bartels. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to serve with you all. After reading the committees and the suggested changes and all of your feedback, I am in favor of the proposed committees. But as I read Minority Leader Ronk's suggested changes, I saw some great language was removed about temporary, emergency, affordable workforce and senior housing. I think Legislator Maloney started touching upon the fact that workforce housing is different. And over the last 4 years in the town of Rochester, as we created Airbnb regulations, we discussed workforce housing a lot, and the fact that there's not great definitions because people who work really hard with children and jobs are struggling to live here. So it may be that that's more economic development, and senior housing is also important for walkable villages and incorporating seniors into our multi-generational living. So although I'm in favor of the proposed committees, we may want to think about it in the future to break some housing issues apart. Thank you.
Legislator Walter.
Thank you. So, many issues that we bring up and many resolutions are heard by more than one committee because of the relevance. There might be a capital project that's related to the environment and it's heard by more than one committee. It's reasonable. And so, so the fact that planning is still located in economic development doesn't concern me, because I feel like the primary issues, the obstacles we really need to tackle, its association with planning is secondary. It may very likely come up or it may not, but the primary obstacles we need to tackle with housing really should have its focus in health. I'm going to say that I don't necessarily disagree with Legislator Maloney that it should stand alone. However, at this point, when I think of the work of the committees and resolutions that have to be addressed, it's not in its place right now to stand alone as its own committee, because it's not seeing the level of resolutions that a committee work would be involved in committee work. I think that in health, I would really strongly support and encourage those people in that committee to consider making a sub or a task force that's really focused on housing. I know Legislator Petit brought this up probably the very beginning of last legislative session, that's 2 years ago, the importance of doing that. And so, you know, I think there is a relevancy of highlighting housing and really coming up with solutions, but in terms of where it should sit in a committee, I once again, supported in health, it doesn't mean that some of the issues might not also have to come up in economic development if it's relevant. That's up to our clerk to make those kinds of calls. But again, it's focused on priorities, and the priorities are making these improvements for the health and well-being. And I just want to also say, and I don't know if it was specified to me, I was certainly not talking just about homelessness. We have a lot of people in our county who live in low-grade housing. And because of the high cost of housing, whether it's due to Airbnb or just housing deficit, and that low-grade housing creates large numbers of health problems for those individuals too. So this is not just about the people who are homeless. This is the people who are in unstable, and if I was to reword what low-grade housing is, I would call it unhealthy housing, which again reiterates why I strongly support this. And the last thing I'm going to say is, I do feel like I had substantial time to look at the changes proposed by the chair. I don't feel like they were last minute at all. The amendments for the executive did feel like last minute because I just saw it about 10 minutes ago. So I just want to clarify that I don't feel that these changes are last minute. I feel like we've had substantial time to talk about them, think about them, discuss them with each other, and I wholly support them as they originally are. Thank you.
Legislator Petit.
Thank you. Housing has been an issue for 2-3 years now, and now it's gone critical. And it's not just it's not just temporary housing or Section 8 subsidized housing. You know, it's everything from the working class to the middle class. And, you know, if we're looking at economic development, we're also looking at, you know, high-end houses. I do believe, though, that because it is such an important issue, it should be in its own committee. And I know we spoke quite a bit with several legislators about that. I mean, moving it from one committee back to the other, I really think it should be in its own committee, but that's not the motion, so I'll stop there.
I do not see any other hands raised. So on the amendment for clarification, because it has been changed, which is related to the move of housing only. Majority Leader?
Yes, so believe the amendments on moving housing back to economic development. Am I correct?
Yes.
On that amendment, I believe we are a short no with 1 yes. Legislator Maloney, please speak up if I misread that.
Okay.
Thank you. So we're a short. Yep.
And Minority Leader Wrong?
As far as I know, I believe, are a short yes with 1 no, Fabiano, unless anybody else speaks up.
So with hearing none, that amendment is defeated 7-16.
Thank you. On the resolution. Legislator
make
Wrong,
another
did you
motion.
want to? Yes, Legislator Wrong.
You know, unless somebody else wants to make an amendment, you know, I'll leave well enough alone with the rest of it. I mean, it doesn't sound like the support's there. I've already made my points. It seems as if there's a will of the legislature to just move forward with these large changes to the committees, you know, on the first day that we're together. So I won't belabor the point.
On the resolution?
I'd like a long roll.
Okay, before the long roll, is there anyone else who would wants to speak before the roll? Legislator Licks.
Yes, thank you. I know that a lot of people are passionate about temporary housing and affordable housing. But what we have to remember is the Ulster County Planning Board, which works with all the towns, one of their major functions is commercial property and residential housing. And that committee or that planning board reports to our planning department, and the planning department reports to the Economic Development Committee. And that's a major role in our economy of the county. To just remove everything and put it in a different committee, I don't think makes sense. Because, I mean, that's a major function of our county economic drivers. And I think we need to, I understand the compassion, but I think we need to consider the unintended consequences of taking it away from economic development.
Are there any other comments before we move into a long roll? Okay, so on the resolution, I'll turn it over to the clerk for a long roll.
Bartels,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Corcoran,
No.
Criswell,
Yes.
Erner,
Yes.
Fabiano,
Yes.
Gaveris,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Hansett,
Yes.
Hepner,
Yeah.
Hewitt,
Yes.
Levine,
Yes.
Blitz,
I'm going to be a no, because I think we're splitting the baby here, and we're not realizing the unintended consequences. I believe we should be looking at maybe bifurcating the housing question into maybe putting it in two different committees under different standings, but I'll be a no.
Lopez,
No.
Maloney,
I'll explain my vote real quick. You know, post charter, I think every legislative body has spoken about truly empowering the legislature to a co-equal branch of government that no one I talk to in leadership or any other part of the legislature in this term so far, in the last term that I served on, thinks that we are a co-equal branch of government. We are only as powerful as we are as a group. A 12-member group becomes a real co-equal branch of government. We have not been able to do that. And a lot of that is because we have not been able to empower our standing committees. And I just think right now what we're doing way too early is moving words around, moving a word under this word, but it doesn't fix the underlying problem, is how we've been functioning. And I think the only way to do that is to really take serious. We're going to have to start postponing and voting things down, demanding inclusion, information, and data in real time, a seat at the table. I reminded the Democratic caucus the other day that the executive's job is day-to-day operations. Our job as policymakers is really a plan and a path forward, and then the executive takes over. That is not how this county is functioning. And for that reason, I'll be a no. And I think it's important because I really don't agree with the process, the timing, and some of the things that I haven't really had a chance to debate with my fellow legislators in a real way. I'll be a no. And I think it's important that we all are no's a little more often when it's not right. To fix this, we're going to have to stand up and demand that we are part of the conversation. We have a seat at the table, and we truly are policy makers and fund appropriators. So I'll be a no.
Nolan,
Yes.
Petit,
Well, again, I'd really like to see housing and transportation in their own committee, but with that, as it is now, I'm a yes.
Roberts,
Madam Chair, I'm not going to second guess you on your first day. I'm a yes.
Ronk,
I'll be a no.
Sperry,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Uchitel,
Yes.
and Walter.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted 18-5.
Thank you. We've concluded resolutions. I'd like to call on Legislator Uchitel to read tonight's memorials.
Thank you, Chairwoman Bartels. Tonight's meeting is adjourned in the memory of Richard P. Boyce of Lake Katrine, New York, Marguerite Hagel of West Shokan, New York, Linda Vanette of Kingston, New York, Rose M. Porsche of Kingston, New York, George W. McClure of Kingston, New York, Catherine L. Neer of Riften, New York, Sandra L. Daw of Port Ewan, New York, Virginia H. Sujejivian of Woodstock, New York, Demetrios Dracontitis of Kingston, New York, Edward G. Zelafrau of Kingston, New York, Norman Hertlin of Saugerties, New York, Virginia L. Cahill of Irondequoit, New York, John P. Traverse of Stone Ridge, New York, Michael Lang of Woodstock, New York, James L. Ralia, King of Highland, New York, Richard Colosiero of Milton, New York, and finally, Bruno J. Ronchisi, a World War II veteran of Marlborough, New York.
Thank you, Legislator Litz.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to also add Tom Schoonmaker from Highland, New York.
Legislator Walter.
Thank you. I just want to say briefly about Michael Lang from Woodstock, New York. This is an amazing, amazing person from Ulster County. And when we speak of arts being added to economic development, this person who created the Woodstock Festival as we know it, both the first time around and the second time around, and the energy that he put into really raising arts, not only the attention towards the arts, but it served as a major economic driver, and it's a huge loss to our county, the loss of Michael Lang, and I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Legislator Cahill.
Thank you, Chairperson Bartels. I wanted to add the name of Mark Trott. Mark is a former candidate for both the legislature and the town of Ulster Town Board, and he passed away yesterday. He was a good guy, had left a young family. It's very sad.
Legislator Hepner.
Thank you, Chair Bartels. Legislator Walter echoed it perfectly in regards to the memory of Michael Lang, co-founder of the Woodstock Festival. And, you know, as a person that grew up in the community that lent its name to that festival, I just want to, you know, he was someone that was of almost legendary, infamous status, you know, from a young age, and what he meant to generations in the future that would come from what he created in 1969. So I just want to again recognize his memory and condolences to his family and so many in this community that are hurting from his loss. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any more hands. I'd like to just let everyone know that I anticipate releasing the legislative schedule shortly. I look forward to working with majority and minority leaders regarding committee assignments in the coming weeks, and I anticipate reaching out to each of you directly as well. At this point, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chairwoman, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Thank you. All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Congratulations.
Thank
Chairperson.
you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Take care,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone.
Aye.